Good day. Welcome to our Community Infinity Safety Awareness podcast, where we talk about the issues related to the social issues. Before we go further, we would like to acknowledge we are on Treaty 6 treaty land, the land which welcomes everyone and gives the opportunity to progress and prosper everyone, not only based on gender equality. Racism does not exist here. We treat everyone in a same token. We are talking about the gender equality. The Alberta government is taking a lot of initiative addressing the gender violence, gender equality, and we have today Minister of Arts, Culture, and Status of Women, Tanya Farr. And I don't think so we could have a better person who can address or talk about these issues better than Tanya. Because Tanya has been an HR manager for more than 16 years. She understands what we are going to talk about it. And Alberta government has just granted $54 million over 4 years to handle this issue. Tanya, thank you and taking your time and addressing this issue with us. Could you please tell us a little bit more about this project?
Hi, Sunny. Great to speak with you again. And yes, as you mentioned, we recently signed an agreement with the federal government to work together on developing a 10-year strategy on a national action plan to end gender-based violence. And as you mentioned, it's $54 million in federal funding over the next 4 years. So it's something that we're very much looking forward to getting underway in conjunction and complementing all the other important work we've already done in the province.
So Tanya, if we understand, we talk about the diversity, equity, and inclusion. So gender equality also not only male, female, it includes everything, all the LGBTQ, everything, and we treat them well, same way as we want to be treated. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And when we start the engagement process, when we're going to be talking to community organizations, for example, women's shelters and other organizations who are experts in this field, to your point, we also want to make sure that we have a wide range of groups and communities that we're talking to. That includes Indigenous people, that includes the 2S LGBTQIA+ community, refugees and immigrants, people in remote and rural communities, and of course, engaging men and boys as well. So it's a very broad, wide circle of individuals that we want to talk to, all that will bring valuable perspectives and expertise to the conversation.
So Tanya, I will bring your experience back as a HR person, right? HR safety training person. Firstly, we have to acknowledge the people understand what gender equality is. Everyone is treated in the same way. And then we go back to how to identify the violence too, right? And how we identified what gender violence is, gender-based violence is. But you did just mention, I'm going to tap your comment on it. You said you did mention you will be going back to the women's shelters and everyone. So are you planning to include the men's shelters also? Because when we're talking about the gender-based violence, it's not only male, not only female, male goes with this emotional or physical violence also. Any thoughts?
Yeah, an excellent question. Absolutely, we'll be including those groups as well, because even though, generally speaking, women, the majority of gender-based violence affects women and girls, it does affect many other groups as well, some marginalized groups or underrepresented groups. As you say, people don't often first think of men or boys when they think of violence, but they are affected as well, as I mentioned, as are other communities and groups who face a disproportionate amount of violence, such as our 2S LGBTQIA+ community. So absolutely, it's going to be as an inclusive of an engagement process as possible.
So you did mention, it's a 10-year over project, and we got more than $54 million. So what's a plan at how the funding will be received, how it will be done, like on a period wise?
Yeah. So in the first year, um, we will support and build upon the extensive work that's already underway by groups throughout the province to develop the strategy. And our year one funding priorities, those will focus on support for survivors and prevention awareness and education. And then in the coming months, the government will be providing more details on how the funding will be allocated, because the development of our strategic plan and the engagement and the feedback we get informed by the gender-based violence community will guide the funding priorities, right? The first most important step is having those engagement sessions. Also, the information that comes in from the online survey and the telephone polls. Once we've got that framework, that's going to better help guide us where the funding should be allocated, where the priorities are.
So, Tanya, you did mention, you have a plan in process, and as an HR person, you have been in this role, right? Making a policy is very easy, but implementing, sustaining, and continuously improvement or reviewing it basically we lack there, or it just that, we drop the ball.
Mhm.
So because it's a 10-year process, do you have any implementation or continuous improvement plan also included in it?
Yeah, so of course the first step will be to do the engagements. Purpose of those is to inform the development of the 10-year strategy. But you're absolutely right, Sunny. Having something in policy is very different than having it in practice. And absolutely, there will be continuous review and improvements and feedback to make sure that what we've come up with in writing or as policy is actually being effective and making a difference in practice. So it's absolutely my intention over the 4 years that we are having continuous improvement sessions and feedback to make those changes and adjustments where needed.
Now, the second question is like, I'm sorry, I'm referring back to your HR experience, right?
That's all
Um,
right.
my question is like, firstly, making a policy is one thing as a government or, as a professional. But unless the people know what gender violence is, like where is it emotionally, is physical, is verbal, is mental, is psychological, is that a plan in place where they're going to give a training or empowerment or a knowledge, basically where it can be identified, acknowledged, okay, this is not a conversation, is a harassment, or is a physical or psychological or sexual violence, enforcing it, like is a process in place where the every gender is given education. I said, this is not a joke, it's not a team building process, is a problem here.
Yeah. Excellent point. One of the other goals with this is with the 10-year strategy and the engagement is not only to enhance existing work and programs and to identify gaps, but to identify root causes. To your point, Sunny, it's important to know what the root causes are, but it's education and communication is so important because everybody might have a different understanding of what they think gender-based violence is or isn't. And as you pointed out, it encompasses such a wide range from physical to mental to psychological. And educating is very important. We've seen, this is a slightly different example, over the years, schools and community groups have taken more time to educate young people on bullying in schools as an example. And this is something I look at the same way as we have to educate people on what gender-based violence is. And that includes not only adults, but children and young people as well, to make sure that they understand what it is and they understand what to do if they are experiencing it or someone they know is experiencing it.
And I'm going to bring like my home example, right? And then you can say, what is it? And that's what I want to, why I'm bringing this topic, or, my personal experience. So we can talk about a little bit culture here too, right? Like sometimes we just treat like, as a man's job, as a female's job, like as a wife's job or sister's job. So give you example of my house, right? I work hard. but I don't do any kitchen. I don't cook. My wife works full time too, but she will come home and she will prepare her food. I will not go. So it's not me as a fault, but then how I've been trained and called, raised. So I was talking to my daughter once, she's a RN and she's 23. I said, we have to, find a guy for you. She said, anything except South Asian or brown guy. I said, why? They said, they don't do anything at home. They just sit and order it. Why I'm bringing this topic, because sometimes it's a culture barrier too. How we have been raised, how we have been given the value, and we do not realize we are not treating other people same. Because for me, it's yes, she is working full time too. I'm working full time. We both have to share the home task also, but sometimes it does not happen. So are we going to address those issues also, like how to bring that awareness?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. It relates to a meeting I was having with a stakeholder group, an African stakeholder group, a women's shelter. And they were talking about the same thing, Sunny, you're talking about how the cultural components can sometimes add layers of complexity to challenging issues. So, for example, she was sharing with me how if a lot of these immigrants come from different countries that perhaps have very traditional roles and expectations for men and women, and then they're coming to a country like Canada where women are encouraged to be more empowered and therefore there to be more equality, that can sometimes bring added tension to a home and perhaps be an increased risk factor or contributor to tension or gender-based violence in the home. So to answer your question, yes, these are absolutely things we're going to be making sure that we include and take into consideration in the engagement, because as you've pointed out, there's so many additional factors that need to be considered as part of the education and learning with respect to traditional roles and expectations from a variety of communities. I know my dad doesn't do any of the cooking either, and my mom and dad both work full time, but I don't think he's cooked a meal in his life. So it doesn't make him a bad person. But yeah, like you, he doesn't cook.
Because it's not like there's no good or bad, like how we have been raised, right?
Right.
We
No.
have been told, like, females or the wife or sisters or daughters look after the house, right? Or the kitchen or the kids and everything. And as a male, you go outside and work. We divide our roles at home, but sometimes we do not realize the roles have changed when we in a modern society, or when we come to Canada, where both have to work together. So I think,
Right.
as you mentioned, awareness and giving a knowledge and communicating both have a same power or role to run the house or the society is, commendable. You, Dania, you did mention you will be doing, and you are basically talking to the different stakeholders or communities. Government do everything, but they cannot do everything, be honest with you. So we always go to the small groups or non-profit societies, or individuals or different groups who are basically working on this projects, or they can help. Is any plan how to include them also?
Yeah, absolutely. So there'll be many different branches or methods that we're doing as part of the engagement. As I mentioned, we do now have open an online survey. I'll just share with you where your viewers can go to that, and I'll mention it twice on if they go to alberta.ca/gender based violence engagement. Again, that's www.alberta.ca/gender based violence engagement. That's where they can participate in the online survey. We'll also be doing a phone survey as well. The online survey is open till November 17th. So that's a way that any and all Albertans who are interested in providing feedback can. And then with the specific targeted roundtable engagements, the Department of Arts, Culture, and Status of Women will be reaching out to a wide variety of community organizations, nonprofit groups, service providers, cultural communities, to get the widest possible feedback.
So, Tanya, my last, like not the last question, but one of the question when we talk about collecting the surveys, right? We're going to the male, female, all different group. I hope, and if I am understanding, it will be anonymous, like no name involved. And the government will be giving them an opportunity to speak in different languages also. Like sometimes, as we say, the new immigrants comes, and the English is a second language, and sometimes terminology gets, using the words, it totally, the information is not right. Like, how, what we, listening it and reading it and writing it, it totally, sometimes it get lost. Is any process in place too, or you are thinking about it? When we are going to different ethnic groups, we are understanding their little bit culture background before asking a question and the language,
Yeah.
right language.
So you bet. Yes, the online survey will be translated into different languages. There will be options for languages other than English. And with respect to the roundtables, as we're developing those roundtables and engagements, if we do have groups where a translator would be needed or necessary, that is something absolutely that we would accommodate. Additionally, and I know this is not what you asked, Sunny, but I do want to add, because your question reminded me of something important. As we're doing these engagements, obviously these are going to be very difficult, sensitive conversations for many people, especially if there's survivors in the room. And we will be making sure that we will have on hand counselors for those individuals who may be experiencing difficult times, and it might be very traumatic for them to participate in these roundtables. So we will be making sure that we have support staff available during the engagements.
Tanya, my last request to you is, like if I have missed anything in the whole conversation, which is really important or critical part of this engagement or a process or plan, if you could please tell us, because sometimes when we are asking questions, things get, so if I have missed anything, please do tell us.
No, Sunny, you always ask great questions. I think I would just close by saying, every Albertan deserves to live free of fear and violence. And this is about supporting survivors, and it's about making a Made in Alberta action plan that focuses on the needs of Albertans, and making life better and safer and brighter for all Albertans.
Thank you, Tanya, for taking the time and giving us a vast knowledge, detailed information about this gender-based violence program and how the other people can get involved. Thank you. Keep up the good work and keep doing the great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunny. Always appreciate talking to you. Bye for now.
Bye now, man.